Hello and welcome to The Last Tackle. I'm delighted to welcome to the studio Kev Brown and Adrian Morley, two former Warrington players. It's the place we've got to start at. Well, were you surprised Sunday night?
With the result, I was surprised, but I wasn't really surprised with the coach being relieved of his duties. I think
Rumours have been flying for a few days, haven't they?
Well, for a few weeks. I think some people were thinking it was almost a month too late, and you say it's the straw that brought the camel's back, but it was almost a giant log, because getting beat off Wakefield away by 40 points is a huge disappointment for Warrington, whatever the circumstances. But when they've won one game in 8 and that's 1 in 9. They've lost 5 on the bounce now, the worst results in 20 years. It was all pointing to the exit door for Darrell, unfortunately.
What's gone wrong? Well, they won the first 8 this season. Yeah. All right, we all know what happened last season, finished second bottom. They're stuck with Darrell, made some good signings. I know they've not completely worked out. But what has gone wrong? They won the first 8. And then it's 6 losses on the bounce, just winning 7 and 8.
It's really tough to analyse and come to a conclusion, because you're right, teams don't go from winning 8 on the bounce to suddenly becoming one of the worst teams in Super League, which they are. You know, let's be honest about it. But you know, for last year, you can understand what happened. You know, they didn't have his own players and new team, new coach, etc. But this year, he's had everything at his disposal. He's recruited his own players, and they did start great, but they look as though the players are disinterested, but it looks as though the coach has lost confidence as well. I listened to Darrell after they got beat. They beat heavily off Leeds Rhinos, and he was, you know, let's hope we can make the top 6, and it was such a negative interview compared to how they have been flying at the start of the year. And I just said, you know, the club's got a few problems here. I agree with Brownie. You know, I think it's right that they did part ways. Before he did come to Warrington, it looked like a fantastic partnership. You know, Darrell Powell with his great reputation and did really well with a under-resourced team at Castleford. So they all spend in Warrington, but it's just been disastrous from day one, really. So onwards and upwards for the club now. You know, they've relieved him of his duties, and it's up to them to recruit now. But they need to get a really strong, experienced coach in place, because for the club like Warrington to be where they have been the last couple of years is unacceptable, really.
I mean, they lost Josh McGuire. Obviously, he's gone back to Australia. But when they went that run of winning 8 games, they didn't have him.
No, I think Thomas McKaylee as well, losing him at the similar time, just took that firepower from up the middle, and that's where they really struggled last year.
And that's what he'd concentrated on pre-season, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Paul Vaughan was great, yeah. Cassiano was great. Cassiano's been in and out a little bit.
George Williams got injured, didn't he?
Yeah, so there's a combination of things, and confidence, like Moz said with Darrell, I think that runs through the group. And with Warrington, you look, and when they're confident, they're as good as anyone. They win 8 games on the bounce, they play great stuff. As soon as there's any adversity, whether that's in a game or a larger patch, they just capitulate, and that's been an issue for a long time. The great front runners, as soon as they go behind in a game, they don't just lose like some of the good sides do when they play poor by a couple of points. They get battered.
Yeah, I mean, I think last time me and you did a show, Warrington were the second, I think. And look at them now, 6th, still in the playoffs.
Yeah, still in the playoffs, but the way they're going, and you know, our game's all about form and momentum, and I can't see them getting out of it easily. You know, with a new coach, and there's a caretaker coach, Gaz Chambers, and you know,
and Richard Marshall. Yeah,
I think the world of Gaz. You know, but when this does happen, when a coach does get relieved, you normally do get reaction from the players. But the players have got to take some responsibility as well. It's not all about the coach. The players looked as though they've not cared a great deal this year, really.
Well, you took responsibility in the dressing room. Well, you were skipper as well, of course.
Yeah, and you know, it's down to the players. And you know, I was talking to Brownie before the show, and he said, you know, Warrington look like they're a lot of fantastic players, don't get me wrong, but there's not much grit. You know, there's not like a Benny Westwood or the type of player who's, you know, forget about scoring tries, just wants to do the hard stuff. So they want to do the pretty stuff rather than the hard stuff. But when Darrell did, you know, recruit all the big forwards, we thought now they've got the muscle as well as the firepower, but it's just not worked that way really. But I do feel the players, you know, they do need to take some sort of responsibility, and if they do, you know, step it up this week and and turn on a performance against the Cattle and Dragons will know. You know, it was the players who just thought we're not playing for Darryl.
And that's the strange thing with the players that they've got. They've still a chance with how strange this competition is this season. If Warrington can build some momentum like they did at the start of the year under whoever guys, Richard Marshall or the new coach, they've still got a chance because they've still got the players.
Well, if they've still got the players then, and it's not just Darryl Powell's fault, is it?
Well, it's never just the coach's fault. The coach ultimately falls on his sword because he's the head of the pyramid, and if the players aren't playing well, it is Darryl's fault, and that's just a tough...
That's sport.
It's sport, yeah.
Football, anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
100%. Whenever I was on the field and whenever I was part of a team that the coach lost his job, I felt that was my fault too, and ultimately the coach isn't on the field. So if you're a player that has some pride in your own performance, irrelevant what you're told, a lot of them players know how to play rugby. They've been coached by fantastic coaches. And some of the defence against Wakefield and the previous weeks, that's not technical.
It's 42-6. 42-6.
Yeah,
So it's not the coach.
You know, if it was a close game, they just got pipped by 2 points. You could argue one way or the other, but to be, you know, really schooled like that away from home against the team who were bottom of the league, you can understand why the club had to make a decision.
What's the answer now then for Warrington? Obviously, as we said, Gary Chambers is going to look after him with Richard Marshall. Do you stick with them to the end of the season? Do you try and move for someone now?
I'd try and do it as soon as possible. But
with the
I think
playoffs looming?
There's still...
Got to get in the playoffs, of
There's
course.
still money in this season, yeah. I think they've still got a chance, but I wouldn't rush and sacrifice getting the right coach to get him in quickly. I think they need... I completely agree with Moz. They need a senior coach who's been around the block, a Sean Wayne, a Paul Rowley, a Wayne Bennett. Could they entice him over? They need someone who's the
Justin
biggest
Holbrook's the
personality.
5-4 favourite. Obviously did a great job at Saints.
Yeah, well, he'd be another great one. I'm not sure. I think his stock is too good in Australia at the moment. I think he'll get a job over there. If they could get him over, then he's another senior. He's a tried and tested coach on both sides of the
Lee
globe.
Breers to come back?
I think it's too soon. I think Breers is a great coach. I think the problem with Breers, he coming to Warrington, a club that he's played at, is it's sort of an experiment. He's played with a lot of them lads who are in that team. I think he will come back at some stage, but in my opinion, they just need someone who they know it's a bit of a safer bet. It's a 7-4 bet, not an 8 or a 9-1.
Moz, who would you like to see take charge at your old club?
Justin Holbrook would be my...
You know him. Why don't you give him a ring?
I do.
Give him a ring now if you want.
I played with Justin, and good guy, but you know he's tried and tested in this competition as well, because that's important as well. You know, he knows what the Super League's all about. He lived in the northwest, up the road at St Helens there. So, you know, the fact that he's been relieved of his duties in Australia, he is available, but it's whether he's, you know, I know he's got kids and a family. It's whether they want to go to the other side of the world when he's potentially got options there in Australia as well.
Do you want to rule yourself out of betting, Kev?
I thought it was you who was winding me up, putting me in the betting. I don't.
You're 100 to 1.
And save your money.
I've priced up Moz at 500 to 1. And the reason you're 500 to 1, Moz, it nothing to do with me. I'm told you can't even manage yourself, so you won't be able to challenge Warrington.
I'll agree with that.
So are you both running yourselves out of the job?
Yeah, completely. I'm not a
No,
coach.
but look, you were the skipper. You had a great time there as well. Look, it must hurt when you see this.
It does. It hurts because I know how many good people and how much passion and work's been put into that club, and they're desperate for success. And sometimes that's probably at the detriment because everyone's trying, but I think they all need to get together and go the same way.
Yeah. And it's not over this season. They are still in the playoff spots for 2 points ahead of Salford, 4 points ahead of Leeds and Hull.
Yeah, and we've seen this season. It weren't that long ago that they were beating everyone, and everyone was talking how good they are. So they've got McKaylee back over. I think they've highlighted that. You know, they have missed him too. I think they'll probably run with that squad now. But it's not personnel on the field. The personnel on the field: Williams, Drinkwater, Walker, Darryl Clark. They've got top-class international players.
Right, before we talk about the other games from round 20, we've got to give credit to Wakefield now. Obviously 42-6, and Luke Gale, he was brilliant.
He was absolutely fantastic. He rolled back the years, and
Yeah.
it was nice listening to his interview after the game. he said he thought his chances of playing Super League had gone now, and the fact that he got, he's had a new opportunity, but it looked like a spring chicken running around, didn't he? I know, Warrington's defence was quite poor at times, but he just ruled the show, he bossed the show, and he looked fantastic, as did the Wakefield team.
And Wakefield, that was 14 losses to begin with. Now, that's 4 consecutive home wins on the bounce, and Castleford have got to go to Wakefield as well later on this month.
And you talk about coaches, I think the resilience and the character that Mark Applegarth's shown when everyone was
14 defeats on the bounce.
How do you keep positive? And he did. He never once blamed the players. He never sulked. He always showed up to the media, and I think the resilience he's shown and the experience he's got from that, and he can draw from that. But they're in the driving seat. Luke Gale is so important to this team, because I thought Mason Leno played better, Max Jowett played better. But if you'd have just flown into that game and thought, who's the England captain, you wouldn't have picked George Williams. You'd have picked off that game Luke Gale.
And Wakefield, obviously, level on points now. They can do it, can't they?
They can, and Cass have to go to Wakefield. I think that's
20th of August.
4 on the bounce they've won at home. So it's always been a tough place. It's always been a
Still
tough
got
place.
another 4
I don't know when that
home
new
games.
stand gets open, because if they ram that full of Wakefield fans as well, that's not far off being open too. If I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I'd be backing Wakefield to stay up.
Let's just go through the other games. Thursday night, Huddersfield 19, Hull 12. I tell you what, I thought about 3 weeks ago, Huddersfield were going to get dragged into this at the bottom of the table, and then they go and win 3 in a bounce, starting with that brilliant win at Catalan.
Yeah, I think Catalan at that time was probably the game that they needed, where they were underdogs and they were expected to get beat, and they went there, and the confidence went from on the floor to through the roof, and off the back of that, they've won the last couple, so that's 3 on the bounce now. And I was speaking to Lewis before. They're an outside chance now of sneaking into the playoffs. When Salford made the grand final, and I know they're going to have to win every game.
Well, they're going to have to win that game in hand against Saints, I would suggest.
And that's what they did when Watto was in charge at Salford. They won every game, and it was almost knockout rugby all the way through. So he's done it before, and I will not write him off, because when the chips are down, Watto gets results. Yeah,
there's 6 points off the playoffs, Huddersfield, but they have got a game in hand. That's against St Helens. That'll be Challenge Cup weekend. Friday, Hull KR versus Castleford. What a job Willie Peters has done. Yeah, and obviously Challenge Cup final to come as well.
Fantastic. The week before, they made Wembley, first time in a while, and you could understand if the players all had a celebration that week, but it was just down to business as again at the weekend, and they sawn off Castleford, although Castleford, you could argue, are on the downward spiral in terms of confidence, but Castleford threw quite a bit at them as well. They scored a few points, but for them to get the win, so soon after a semi-final was a great result for them. They'll be on for another good performance next week, leading into the big one, the following weekend. But did a fantastic job. Started great, had a bit of a dip. Injuries played their part in the dip, but now they've certainly come good, and to have a Challenge Cup final spot waiting there is amazing.
And Friday night, Lions go with St Helens Leeds, third time they've met this season, all been close games as well. But Jack Wellesby was a difference, wasn't he, on Friday night?
He was. It was a typical Leeds Saints game. The 2 previous fixtures, as you say, have been very, very close. It was the score changed end to end. It was the score changed hands several times, but Jack Wellesby was the difference. Scored 2 fantastic tries, and Saints, for all they've had a bit of adversity last week as well, getting knocked out of the cup, a couple of bad injuries to the players, but it was great for them. Just showing how much resolve is there at the club, and a great win, a great performance.
And Leeds 4 points off the playoffs. Obviously, they snuck into the playoffs last year, and we all know what happened. They got to a grand final, but surely they're too inconsistent this term, aren't they, to sneak into the playoffs?
You just have absolutely no idea what they're going to turn up with. They give you every reason that they're going to get beat when they go down to 12 men, and then they win a game, and then every reason the following week and that they're going to win the game, and they lose. I think a lot of the form is on the halfbacks, Caesar and Austin. When they play well, they win. When they don't play well, they lose. But there are some people who are playing consistently. I think Sam Walters, since he's announced that he's going to Wigan, he's just got better and better, and one of the form players of the league. But yeah, they came up against a very good Jack Wellesby-led St Helens side, and unfortunately just got pipped. But Yeah, well, they could do anything this weekend.
Saturday, it was good to see the Channel 4 cameras once again. Wigan Lee. Wigan were just superb, weren't they?
Well, I think they were probably the ones who partied the hardest, Lee Leopards that week. And rightfully so, it's the first time they've got to Wembley for a long time. But you just got the feeling that Wigan would be annoyed that the little brother has outdone them this year, and they were sat second, so Wigan go above them now. And yeah, they just showed that, yeah, you might be going to the final, but you're going to have to do it consistently a bit more to be the dominant force in Greater Manchester. Yeah,
44-18. But let's just have a word on Lee. Obviously, loads of build-up next week. What a season they're having. I thought that, he was signing this experience to basically make sure they stayed up. Well, they're going to be in the playoffs and they're in the Challenge Cup final.
Well, they could do the treble, couldn't they? And no one... And we're 20 games in. We're not saying it after 4 or 5 games. They're in the final, they're sat in third, and they're still bringing internationals in like Oliver Gildart. So I think as the season's got... I honestly believe they've got the best player in the comp in Lachlan Lamb. He's that good. When he plays well, he's almost unplayable.
And Edwin Pape is very good as well, isn't he?
Well, they've got a lot who are very good. John Asiatas, he's an acquired taste with his tackle tech, but he's another player who, forget about his tackling, his ball playing ability for a front rower. And Lammy, I think the coach, Adrian Lammy, what he's doing with that squad, they're playing a great brand. They've brought the fans in. We're scouting for girls, but it's been the product on the field that's kept them coming and has got them so far in the season. So it's been good, so really good.
And they're at Wembley.
Yeah, well, if you'd have said this before the season, Lee would be flying high at Wembley. You'd have thought you were mad. So
1971, I think was the last time.
That'd have been up with Mozzie's 500 to 1 for getting.
Yeah, the coaching job. But no, it's great. Derek Bowman, he's done an incredible job there at Lee. And I'm going to go down to Wembley. I'll be cheering the North West team on. I hope they can go all the way.
Then one final result to talk about. Catalans 42, Salford 0. We'll talk about Salford in a moment. But let's just have a word on Catalan. Steve McNamara has got them quietly doing the business, and they were absolutely dominant against Salford, weren't they?
They were, and they have been the most consistent side in the competition by a mile. I think what they're doing something special there, and you get the feeling that a lot of them are going to break off. Sam, one of the best ever players in the Super League, he's going to retire at the end of the week. Will Mitchell-Pearce be there? There's a lot of players that will leave that club at the end of the year, and I think they're galvanised by that prospect. And yeah, you'd back them to win the league. And when they get a home tie in the playoffs, we've seen them make the grand final before. Could they go one step further this year?
And Moz, what's going on at Salford? This is a dip, isn't it?
It is a big dip. They've been going particularly well all year, very consistent.
Playing great rugby as well.
They've been playing some really attractive rugby, and this defeat, they have been beat obviously this year, but this was the first game where they really got a good hiding. 42-0. It don't matter if it's away at Catalans. You shouldn't be getting results like that if you want to be a contender and be in the playoff spot. So let's hope it's just a blip. But they do need to bounce back. They do need to hit some form what they was hitting earlier on in the year, because I think it's about 5 out of 6 now they've lost. So it's not really good enough for a team who promised so much. But they've got a home tie next weekend, so they'll be hoping to get back on the arse.
Right, we'll talk about round 21 in a moment, but let's just turn our attention to the Betfred Challenge Cup finals. For the first time, Wembley awaits for the women. Let's hear from the St Helens and Leeds captain. That's Jodie Cunningham and Hannah Butcher.
You're at Wembley. Does it feel real now?
No, I still don't think it is real. Obviously, we're out there pitch side, and to think that us girls are going to get the chance to walk out at Wembley and play on that pitch, it's just outstanding. And yeah, can't wait now. It can't come quick enough.
It just feels a bit surreal at the minute. I still don't think I've got my head around the semi-final that we had played at the weekend. A really, really tough battle, but yeah, being pitch side today, just what an experience. I can't wait to be here with the girls.
I think the state of my face at the end of the game, quite a lot of people would be questioning why I took up rugby league. But for me, it is the best sport in the world. It's worth all the cuts, it's worth all the bruises. I would have done absolutely anything to get to Wembley. You know, the team talk ahead of it was that we were going to have to be brave in that game. We were going to have to front up. It was going to be physical and it was going to hurt. But we would have done absolutely anything to get to this game, and every single girl did that at the weekend, and 100% worth it.
We used to play with the lads at about 7 or 8 year old. We used to play through the winter, I believe, so it were always, you know, snow, hail, rain. So to be playing at Wembley in the summer with Leeds Rhinos women's team is just so special.
We've had some amazing finals against Leeds. Every game against Leeds is always tight. It always comes down to the wire, and I've got no doubt that'll be the case when it comes to the final.
I think it's going to be a real battle against Saints. We've played them once already this season. We know what to expect, and to be honest, I think we're going to have to up us game from the semi-final. There's no doubt about that. Who to look out for? Obviously, I've got to mention Caitlin Beavers, England international, Amy Hardcastle. Caitlin Casey's doing really well for us. I think she's stepped up big time this year. And Zoe Hornby, I think she is a real leader in the middle of the field.
3 games at Wembley. We've got the Betfred Women's Challenge Cup final, then we've got the men's, then we've got the 1895 Cup, which features the Betfred Championship sides Batley versus Halifax. Brilliant that the Women's Challenge Cup final is on the same day. About time, in my opinion, as well.
It is, and it's almost been meteoric, the rise of the women's game. It's been so big and so quick. I think, you know, it's great that, and the game, the product, actually, what they're playing now is fantastic to watch. There's not loads of wrestle, it's open, and there's great stories. The story around Faye Gaskin about she needs a knee replacement. They're not playing to set the families up financially, they're playing for the love of the game. She bust a knee celebrating, now she needs it replacing. They told her you should retire, and then she drops the goal in the semi-final, and she's taking a team to Wembley now. And the dreams of the next generation, they can actually dream about going playing in a rugby match at Wembley in a women's team.
We'll have a very special show next week building up to the Betfred Challenge Cup final, and it's great. We're going to be building up to a women's final and a men's final on the same day at Wembley.
Fantastic. You know, the women, they should be on the big stage, and you know, with the men. And as I say, I'm going down. I'm going to go down extra early. I'm going to watch both games. Well, I'll probably try and watch all 3 games, but just a great day out, and hopefully, because it's 2. You know, none of the big boys in the men's final. You know, Lee and Hull KR. I'm hoping that I'll reinvigorate all the neutrals going down as well, because it has dropped off a little bit over the years, the attendance there at Wembley. So hopefully there'll be a fantastic crowd there and cheering all 3 games on.
And one more word on the women's final. I mean, this is a cracker. St Helens won the Challenge Cup the last 2 years. Leeds are current grand final winners as well, so this is a really good final.
And there's a couple of players who have played for both. Amy Hardcastle plays for Leeds, so I wouldn't want to see the Saints players running at her, because they'll know exactly how hard she can. It's set up to be a great game. Leeds, you were expected to win the semi-final, but were made to work hard against Wigan. You would probably say Saints are the favourites, but you can't write Leeds off, because they coach very well and they've got some fantastic players in the ranks.
And the Betfred wheelchair final is 8 days after the Wembley showpiece, and that's in Sheffield at the Institute of Sport, and that'll be Leeds versus the Catalan Dragons. All the build up to those finals here on the Sportsman.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League.
The home of Betfred Super League Online.
Tune in to Last Tackle every Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, build up next week. It's going to be cracking, building up to the Betfred Challenge Cup finals. But there's an absolute cracker live on Sky on Friday night. Darryl Powell left Warrington on Sunday night. Warrington will be entertaining top of the table Catalan Dragons. Round 21, live on Sky. Is this the kind of game that Gary Chambers and Richard Marshall would actually quite like, actually? Playing the top of a table at home?
In a strange way, there's nothing to lose for him. I think,
bit of a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, we said about Huddersfield, they started the resurrection of the season, going away, nothing to lose. It's almost a free hit. But what Gary will bring is passion. And I think that's why he's gone in there. I've worked with Gaz and he's a terrific fella, and his DNA is Warrington. So I think he'll probably play some young lads. It's good to see Riley Dean's been brought back from Castleford, and I think he'll get the players going and working hard for each other as a given.
Warrington fans watching this, as a former skipper, what would you say to them? Come on Friday night, put behind what's gone on in the last 6 games and get behind a team.
Yeah, you just can't lose faith. It's your club and your town at the end of the day. So get behind the boys. I remember when Paul Cullen, I was at the club when Paul Cullen unfortunately got asked to move on, and the spectators were fantastic after that. And then we had a bit of a reinvigoration after that. We won. I think we won 5 games straight after that. So let's hope there's a reaction from the players. It's going to be tough, but don't forget, Warrington have gone over to Catalans and had 2 wins there.
Yeah, but won 7 of the last 10 meetings.
So they have got a good record against Catalans, and I know there's a bit of adversity in the camp at the moment. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Warrington go out and nail a performance and get the win.
Go on then, prediction time.
Well, I think the first 10 minutes is key. If they start well, Warrington, they win the game, but if they don't, they could get beat by 40. I think Catalans will win the game, but I think it'll be a much improved performance. But there's so far to go for Warrington before they beat a side like Catalans. I'm not sure if it's long enough for Gaz Chambers and...
So you think Friday night can be a step in the right direction for Warrington?
Yeah, similar to last year when they played Saints at home and the fans went away pretty content and happy. It was a Tommy Makinson tackle that they denied them that day. I just think Catalans have got too much. They're red hot at the moment.
Moz?
They are red hot at the moment. I just think that, Brownie spoke out before, the players will feel some sort of responsibility for what's happened to Darryl Powell, and I think they're just going to go out on Friday and think what's happened. It's up to us to perform. I think they're going to go out there and give it their all, and I think they're going to cause an upset. I do.
Live on Sky, it should be a cracker, Warrington versus Catalan. Talking about getting behind them, the home fans have got to get behind Castleford on Friday night, playing Huddersfield.
Well, it's probably the first time that they've been the favourite to get relegated, so they're under the pump now, and I think the fans, they're almost on top of the players, so it's important that they encourage and don't put them off, because sometimes when the season starts to unfold the way it does, the fans' reaction can definitely be counterproductive. So that's going to be a great game. I just can't see Huddersfield's momentum being stopped by Cass.
Yeah, it's 3 on a bounce now, yeah.
It's a juggernaut at the minute, it's rolling, and they'll want to carry that on. And they'll know this is like a playoff game, this is like a knockout game. Because if they lose to Cass, the season's almost over.
Yeah, if they win that and then they've got the game in hand, like you say, outside chance of the playoffs. Cass Huddersfield.
I think Huddersfield, just the way they're going, I agree with what Brownie said, and I want to give Chris Hill a mention. I thought he was fantastic last week.
He was, yeah.
Rolled back the years, my old mate. So I think Huddersfield.
Then on Friday night, a repeat of the recent semi-final from Betfred Challenge Cup, Wigan versus Hull KR.
This is a strange. Every time we used to play in the Challenge Cup final, the game before was always a strange one in terms of who's the coach going to pick. Is he going to put kids in to rest the senior boys and no risk of injuries and that kind of thing? On the flip side, you want to go into a Challenge Cup final on a win with a form and momentum. So it all depends what side the coach picks. But I just think Wigan, the way they went last week, I just think they're playing with confidence, and I think Wigan will get the win.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've got that much threat, and Hull KR, they've got some money in the bank in terms of form now. They won the semi-final, they beat Leeds before that, and then they've backed it up afterwards and got a good win this week. I think he's brought a few loan players in to rest some bodies. I'm not sure whether Jordan Abdul might be back. I think he's not far off. But yeah, Wigan at home, I'd just expect them to be too good, even if they do play the best team.
3 games on Sunday, including one live on Sky. Leeds, your old club, Moz versus Lee. Which Leeds will turn up?
Well, again, which Leeds will turn up, but I don't know what Lammy's thinking in terms of his squad, you know, to rest them or what, because he's not got as big a squad as the other teams. But Brownie said before, you just don't know what you're going to get with Leeds. If they turn up, they can beat anyone in the league.
Which you have done, yeah.
Very, very inconsistent. But I'll go with Lee. I just think you know, the form and momentum they've got. I just think whatever team they put out, I think they'll be very, very excited for the following week. I think they'll go to Reading. Their Leeds have not got as much to play for, even though they can still make the playoffs. I just think Leeds, you know, I don't think they'll make the playoffs now, Leeds. So I just think Lee.
Well, that's the first time he's ever gone against one of his former clubs. There you are. Leeds, Lee.
Yeah, I think Leeds, Lee need a performance. They were poor last week. And what you don't want to do is go poor final. So I think they'll go, and they haven't got a reserves. They haven't got a load of lads who they can bring in. So they're going to be on the field. They may as well go for it and play well, because I think injuries are more of a risk when you dip your toe in. I think they'll go for it, and I think Leeds, it could be anything. So I'm going to go Lee because they're a little bit more consistent.
And talk about could be anything. Hull versus Wakefield. This is a bonus game for Wakefield, isn't it?
Well, Wakefield will be fancying. They're still one of the form sides in the comp at the moment. Is it? Yeah.
One of the last four at home.
Three out of the last four games, last four at home. So yeah, I think they'll go there, and they can put some daylight. They can get off the bottom for the first time with a win. They can get themselves off the bottom of the table this week, because we think Castleford will lose to Huddersfield. Wakefield will go there full of confidence. Hull FC, mediocre, I'd say. They win some, they lose some.
Started well, went on a dip, back to being inconsistent.
Yeah.
Don't know what you're going to get with Hull, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if Wakefield play like they have been doing, and Luke Gale, if he plays and can replicate or even improve on that performance, my money's on Wakefield.
Yeah, if Hull have got any chance of making the playoffs, they need to win and win soon. But I agree with Brownie. I just think Wakefield have got the form. And I think Wakefield will go there and get the result. And
finally, Salford versus St Helens.
Yeah, Salford need to get back to winning ways, or at least put performance in that they could potentially win. So I think they had a fantastic win against Saints. This corresponding fixture last year, they really put a big score on St Helens. They were looking to do something similar, but it's at home. I think they will be a bit embarrassed by the performance last week. So I think Salford will come out and put a good performance in. I think Salford could sneak it and get back to winning ways.
You didn't want against it, another one?
No. Wait, he's probably going there on Sunday. So.
Yeah,
you don't want to lose his complimentary ticket.
I think mentally, that's the key. I think there's a lot of rumours about Salford at the moment. And
unfortunately.
Tyler Dupree leaving, Ellis Longstaff leaving last week. I think the dust has probably settled a little bit, but Saints just look too good to me. Salford are a great side.
Even with the injuries, Wellesby was superb.
They're one of them sides, and that's the thing we were speaking about Warrington before. Saints, it doesn't matter who plays. You put Saints jersey on, you play like a Saints player, and that's what I think they'll do this week. Salford, I think they'll be missing just too many bodies. Brad Singleton will play, so that's a plus, but Saints for me on this one.
Right then, gents, we've run out of time. Thanks for your company. Just before we finish, we're all going to be lucky enough to be going to Wembley. What's it like, the build-up to the Challenge Cup final?
Absolutely fantastic. You know, you're playing on the big stage. You know, all the national papers get involved, and there's all stories. And I used to love travelling down. You know, you go down on a Thursday, you spend a couple of days in the big smoke, stay in nice hotels, and you know, do the Wembley walk before the game. And it's just fantastic. Super League's great. But the Challenge Cup, and particularly the Challenge Cup final, is just the icing on the cake, really. And very fortunate to play in a few finals and get a few wins as well.
Lift the trophy of skipper as well.
I did lift the trophy of the skipper, and you know, them memories, they stick with you for life. And when you do win something with a team, you know, you got that bond for life then. And you know, we have reunions and that kind of thing, and absolutely fantastic. So very fortunate, and you know, every time I go down, it brings back a few nice memories, and I can't wait for Saturday.
We enjoyed Spurs, but it's great to be back at Wembley, isn't it?
It is, and it's the pinnacle for me when you're waved off by thousands of fans, and the lads and the girls will be this weekend or next weekend, sorry. Because they've not done it for so long. I think sometimes that novelty wears off when you're almost expecting it as fans and players. Well, these haven't been. They've not been for years and years. So they'll go down there and walking out the history. It's probably the one thing that we've got over the NRL. The history behind it. Everyone knows about it. It's what you grow up watching. And I can't wait to be a spectator.
Yep, and the best build-up to the Betfred Challenge Cup final, both the men and the women's, here on the Sportsman. Right, enjoy the week. Be lucky.